What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. We on part 3. Uno, dos, tres. Part 3 of why when you first realize that America messed you up, living abroad, Americans living abroad. So these have been very, very interesting, and so far I feel like the two main and major things has been healthcare and really like weapons, utilizing guns and all that stuff. Those have been like some of the main things, and really Americans are triggered by these things, especially those two. But I think this is the last one of this little 3-part series from TikTok, but these have been very interesting. So y'all make sure y'all hit that subscribe button, send out more recommendations. Let's check it out. Let's jump into it and see.
Currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Oh my gosh, such a great question. I have so many. The one that sticks out of my mind right now is the first time I celebrated the 4th of July and the Kiwis were like, oh, happy 4th of July. And I'm like, yeah, suckers. We broke away from the Queen a long time ago and we have freedom and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, hold on. What freedoms don't we have? And why is it bad that other countries work together to protect each other and help each other? And America's always talking about freedom, and what freedoms do you have that we don't have? And I was like, hold up. All this rhetoric that I was told my whole life, the land of the free, we need to fight for our freedom, and it's such a value in the American society. And when you think about how many countries are just as free, where does this freedom value come from?
That is true. Dang. We don't think about that. Like, I know for some places, I don't know. I may not know all the cities. That's why I'm learning now through this channel, through different countries and stuff. But that's a good question. That's a very good question to ask America. What freedoms don't other countries have? Because everything seems to be okay, going good, smooth, well. Right?
And when you think about how many countries are just as free, where does this freedom value come from? I mean, it came back from the Revolutionary War, but hello, there's a lot of countries that are free. It was eye-opening.
American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Did y'all know that in other countries, they can go to the pharmacy and actually get what they need? I live in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia right now, and I went to the pharmacist and I was like, hi, I think I kind of have like a UTI. Like, do you have any pain medicine, any cranberry? And she's like, why don't I just give you antibiotic? And I was like, then I go back and I'm like, hi, I'm going to South Africa next week, like on safari, like any good, mosquito repellent? And she's like, girl, you want anti-malarials?
Wow.
And then I get bold with it, right? I go in there, on another occasion and I'm like, I'm back, I'm waiting for my birth control, like, to come from the US. Like, it's taken a while, prescriptions and doctors and all that. And she literally threw the birth control at me. Amazing.
Dang.
An American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed
I feel like before this, it's such a process to even get looked at in America.
An American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Just one? If this tells you anything, I was only supposed to be abroad for a year. I'm on year 10.
Dang.
Yeah. Essentially, what I learned was me traveling and working around the world was easier and cheaper than me just living in the US. So why would I go back to the US to live and spend more when I can travel and live in other countries and spend less?
Wow.
Make it make sense.
Time that made you realize that America really messed you up.
So I spent about 4 years in Berlin, Germany, working in advertising. And coming from New York, where my first 8 years in the industry, I just, you don't take vacation. You just don't really do that. Well, I had to have a sit down with the CEO of my company and the head of HR, where they took my laptop and took my work phone and told me I could not come back to the office for 3 weeks because I had to use my vacation time. They were afraid that I was going to sue the company for not being allowed to take my vacation time. So they made sure that I literally could not work. Imagine that happening in the US. Someone literally taking your computer.
Ain't nobody taking your stuff in the U.S. at all. If my boss I would have been glad freely get here, take it. I shouldn't be looking at this on my vacation time.
Imagine that happening in the U.S. Someone literally taking your computer and your work phone away and say, go, come back in 3 weeks, enjoy your vacation.
That would be perfect.
Honestly, Europe has a lot going for it that I wish Americans would understand.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I was working as a teacher in South Korea, and a lot of students actually have these little box cutters to cut stuff. I was kind of concerned that these were allowed in school because I was scared that people were going to stab each other.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So just for a little context, I live in Latvia now, but when this happened to me, I was working in the UK as a bartender. And my coworkers and I were talking about gun violence in the US, and they were kind of making jokes like, oh, I'm surprised you graduated and you didn't get shot first, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I guess I was trying to defend it, so I was saying, it's not as bad as the news makes it seem. I only know one school that had an active shooter and had to go into lockdown, and, for me, I only had one gun threat in high school, and it was just a threat, and one when I was in elementary school. And then my coworkers kind of looked at me like, you what? And you think that's normal? And I was like, yeah, it's not even that bad.
It is that bad, because I'm going to tell you, when I was younger, like, we did the basic tornado drill, fire drills and stuff. As I got older and started working at it, the lockdown drills started, I would say maybe the 2010s and stuff like that, because it just started getting even worse. It might have started early. I just probably don't. I just remember doing lockdown drills. I was in high school. That's when I remember doing lockdown drills. So that was probably 2008, 2009-ish. We started doing lockdown drills, lockout drills, and all those things. And now it's a normal thing in schools in the States. Like, because we see somebody walking down the street that might have a gun or something. It's crazy. It's crazy.
American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed?
I'm a U.S. citizen currently living in Costa Rica. We have to be careful about the use of the word American since the Americas are continents. Anyway, I have so many examples of how the U.S. fucked me up, specifically Florida. We got to Costa Rica the second weekend in November, obviously still deep in the throes in the US with COVID. And coming from Florida where there's so many anti-maskers and COVID deniers, it was surreal to go to these establishments here where everyone's following the Ministry of Health's rules. There's hand washing stations outside of every establishment. There are people taking your temperature to go into grocery stores and certain restaurants. People are giving you distance. Everyone is compliant with masks. And I found myself so defensively postured, ready to argue because I had gotten into so many arguments in Florida with anti-maskers and COVID deniers. It's amazing when people don't politicize a virus.
American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
2008 or 9, 20 years old, Munich, Germany. City passes the vibe check, no doubt, but I didn't have anyone with me. And I'm trying to get cigarettes from a machine, my ID doesn't work. Cop shouts from across the street, he's on his way to me. Hey, you, sir, is there anything I can help you with? And immediately no, I'm sorry, don't worry about it, I'm getting out of here anyway. And I keep it moving, and he's like, no, hey, you. And I keep it pushing, like, hey, you? Nah, get the fuck out of here. And the next cop stops me, and I immediately drop everything that's in my hands as I take my hands out of my pockets, so I don't get shot. And so he ends up buying me a pack of cigarettes, bringing me to the nearest bar, explaining to me that they go to 4 years of college to do this, get paid $50,000 a year more than our cops, and
dang,
bought me a drink.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
When I lived in Paris, my period changed because there wasn't as much hormones in the food. If you live abroad for any length of time, your period will also become different over time and revert when you return.
American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So for me, it was a few different times all while I was living in Australia. One time with the various shootings that we have here in the States, my boss came to me and he was like, "Are you okay? How are you feeling? Do you need some time off?" And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Because I heard about the shooting that happened back in the States." I had to sit there and have an honest moment with myself and him to realize that I had built up a numbness to all the shootings because they happen all the time. So that sucked. Number 2. I have horrific cramps. I always have. They make me pass out. I throw up. I've been in the emergency room I don't know how many times at this point. It's just how it's been. I fought against it, but I finally had my roommate take me to the emergency room, and my total was $100 when I left. Wow. As someone who was only on a working holiday visa and not a $2,000 bill like it would have been in the States.
Probably more.
And currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I first started school and asked them when we have our first training for school shootings, and they asked me, "What is that?" I walked into a supermarket and I was confused as to why there weren't any guns on the shelves. When I went on a walk with my friends and they wanted to walk over someone's farm because it was a shortcut, and I said I didn't want to go because I was afraid of getting shot, and they looked at me like I was crazy. When I saw police cars driving up and I realized that
Hey, with that, we used to cut across people's yards all the time when we were I feel like it got worse as time went on. When I was younger, it was not like now it's like that. Like, people are looking for a reason to shoot.
I go because I was afraid of getting shot, and they looked at me like I was crazy. When I saw police cars driving up and I realized that nobody besides me was scared shitless. When I watch political talk shows and they're actually having a conversation and discussing an actual topic instead of talking over each other and insulting each other. When I noticed that over here nudity and sexual expression was seen as natural and normal while violence is talked down upon, when in the States violence is everywhere and nudity and sexuality are taboo.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
Oh man, I got so many stories. As you may know, I'm an American living in Italy, and there have been so many times I'm thinking, oh my god, America is so messed up. Most recently is when I gave birth to my daughter. So I decided to give birth to my daughter here in Italy, and basically before you give birth, they recommend that you meet up with an anesthesiologist. Even if you don't want the epidural beforehand, they recommend you do so just in case, like an emergency, you really want one, or etc. Comunque, so I didn't even end up getting the epidural, but I had to pay for the meeting, and I'm thinking, oh no, how much is this meeting gonna cost? It was 30 euros.
Wow.
30 euros is the equivalent of maybe, let's say, like $40. And also, too, I stayed in the hospital for 3 days, got completely taken care of, and I didn't pay a cent. A cent.
Crazy.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I'm an American and I live in Norway right now. And one time I was going to help my friend with this project that she had, and this girl was still in high school. And so she was like, yeah, just come to my high school. You can help me out, yada, yada, yada. I was like, great. Where do I have to sign in when I get there? Do I need to wear a visitor's badge? Who do I talk to? What should I tell the front desk lady? She was like, what are you talking about? Just walk in and I'll meet you at my classroom. And my mind was blown. I was like, I can just walk into your school? Like, no, aren't they gonna call the police? Aren't they gonna send out an intruder alert? Like, I can't just walk into your high school and just walk straight to your classroom. No. Then I realized just how messed up it is that American high schoolers are like security prisons.
American.
Pretty much. Wow. Dang, that's new. That's an eye opener to me, because like I talk about like different education. Well, on this channel, I reacted to some differences between like the U.S. and Sweden schools and stuff. I think I did another one. I forgot what school it was or what country it was, but they never got into depth about that. Like if you have a visitor come in and check in, because I'm telling you, at high schools and you gotta go through at least like 2 or 3 people before you can even get in there. First of all, that most times they don't even let you in there unless you have a meeting set up. So it's a lot that you gotta do, set up and all that just to go in a school.
American high schoolers are like security prisons.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I live in Romania, and I feel like the most astonishing thing to me when I moved here was how easy it is to find someone to go out with, to go out and have drinks with, to go out and have dinner with. Any given day, somebody wants to go out. Whereas in the US, I feel like we're all so stressed out and miserable that we just want to stay home.
Yeah, that's a fact.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So I live in Estonia now, and I remember the first year that I moved here, it was around the beginning of December, and I remember hearing like gunshots, like really loud gunshots, like, and a lot of them. So me being from Brooklyn, I immediately think that there's some crazy shootout going on outside. So I go and I look out the window, and sure enough, it's fireworks.
Wow.
Fireworks are kind of sort of illegal in New York City. So I was used to just automatically assuming that it was gunshots. Yeah, that's kind of when I realized that America's kind of messed up.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So when I was a teenager, I went out of the country one time to go on vacation to the Bahamas, and we were staying at this resort, and shit happened. I caught a virus that was going around the resort, and then I had an allergic reaction to the virus, and I couldn't really breathe. But the on-site paramedic had already left for the day, so the hotel concierge took us to the hospital in his van and just told us to call when we were ready to head back. So we go to the hospital, I get treated, and as we're leaving, my mom tries to give them her insurance card, and she's telling them, like, I'm so sorry, we've never been out of the country before, I don't know how to do this. They told her, like, oh no, you just keep that, we don't take insurance here. And the look on my mom's face was terrified, like, oh my god, we're gonna have to sell our house, terrified. This was when they realized we were Americans, and they were like, oh no, don't panic, you must be American, we have universal health care here, you just need to pick up your medicine in the lobby, you're fine. The medicine was $8, and they gave me a note to give to the airline to get back into my own country.
What's a celebrity impression that you can do?
That is crazy. That's crazy. Like, now, if it was somebody else, you probably would have. If she would have went to the hospital, somebody dropped her off. First of all, she would have had to wait in the lobby for probably an hour to get even seen or get her blood pressure taken type thing. But no, this one sparked some new stuff. That's crazy. This is different, but this is definitely something like I think everybody should watch and like really experience. That's why I like. My goal this year is to travel abroad and see different countries, because sometimes where you're at, like, it really opens your eyes to more of the world and how things work when you go and visit and travel and different things like that. Or even just me watching these different videos, like, sometimes we just box in our mindset, especially as Americans, because sometimes we can be stubborn and stuck in our ways to the point that we don't want to open our minds to new ideas, or we don't want to open our minds to different things that's going on around the world. But man, this was a real eye opener just watching these 3 videos over the past couple of days. But I appreciate you guys for sending me these recommendations. Y'all make sure y'all hit that subscribe button. That's all I have for this video. Send me more recommendations, and hey, y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.